So Android has a problem. Google has a problem. So the first few months in 2023, there's only 5.2% of 133 million Android users in the United States. And guess what? There's over 3 billion users worldwide that have Android devices that's only on Android 13. Yes, 5.2%, very low. So let's talk about it. Sit back, relax, and get your popcorn ready and follow me on this journey. Let's go. What's up, guys? This is Zach back with another video. So as we know, tech enthusiasts and pro users base their purchase decision on if the company would support their devices for the long term. I mean, for the long term, a lot of people, we tech enthusiasts, we base our purchase decision on if you're going to support the devices for the long term. But based on statistics, we are losing. We are definitely losing. As we see some of the devices that we call flagships, prices is going up, but we get screwed in the long run. Look, every year, Google showcased their new operating system, and it has all these cool features and everything else in between. We get excited over it, and we would love to see it on our devices. But you know what? It don't happen that way. We want to know when it's going to come out and hit our devices. Man, we want to know when it's going to hit our devices, right? That's only fair. We bought into their promise years ago, and now every time they got a fresh new update with new features, we want to know when we would get this awesome, fresh, new operating system. Well, according to statistics, not a lot of people will get the new updates. Only 5% of current devices right now is on Android 13. And you know what? Android 13 was released in August of 2022. As of me recording this video, this is February in 2022, and only 5.2% of Android users is on Android 13. But what makes matters worse, that there's only 18.9% of Android users is on Android 12 and 12L. I mean, only on Android 12 and 12L, 18%. You know what? Android 12L came out in October of 2021. 18.9% of Android users is on Android 12. So here's the killer. The more Android devices is on Android 11 or other operating systems. Think about it. Android 11 has 24.4% of users is on Android 11. So yeah, Google, you have a problem. It's a huge problem. 24% on Android 11 and Android 10. Oh man, this is crazy. We as consumers spend a ton of money on devices, putting our trust in these companies. And you know what? We're not getting no return on our investments. No support or lack thereof support. But you know what makes matters worse? Security patches. Don't you know there's over 1 billion Android devices right now worldwide that's at risk? They no longer receive security updates. Now, you know what? This is a huge problem. They're not getting no security updates. And you know what? Hackers having a good day, saying that, wow, all these people is vulnerable. Only thing we got to do is send out some links and y'all guys go click on it and boom, we got you. Now, look, we can sit up here and say, why don't people update? Why do people hold on to old devices? Why don't people just buy newer smartphones every year or every 2 years? Well, here's the answer to that. Not everyone has the money to keep buying phones over and over and over. And not everybody has the means to finance smartphones for every 2 years. You know what? There are millions of people that buy smartphones based on their budget and income situations. And you know what? Devices cost a lot of money, and a lot of people just don't have the budget. So they look for cheaper options. We make videos about cheaper options, and we talk about cheaper options because you know what? We want to give you better bang for your buck. And there's nothing wrong with that. So as we look at the state of Android, one would think, how could this happen? How could the largest company on the planet that distributed their operating system to different smartphone companies and stuff like that through manufacturers and stuff like that allow such a disaster to happen? Look, it gets worse. It gets worse. Think about this. We are almost 6 months away for the release of Android 14. And if you think about only 5.2% of devices right now is on Android 13, one would assume that the percentage of devices that will get Android 14 is pretty low. And for the devices that's going to get Android 14, they got to get Android 13 first. With only 5.2% of devices right now Android 13, it's got a long way to go. Man, look, companies like Samsung, Motorola, Microsoft, OnePlus, Google, man, they want to sell you their latest devices. They come out on stage and they talk a good game. You need to buy into this. You need to buy into this. We're going to give you a 200 megapixel camera. We're going to give you the fastest device on the planet. We're going to give you everything that you need. You know, they're going to hype you up. They're going to hype you up telling you that their latest devices is the device that you should buy. But what about the older devices? You know, if you go back and you look at the keynote addresses from years ago, they said the same thing, and they don't even support the devices. Think about 3 to 4 year old devices. It's not that old. It's not that old. Hell, we got devices that have a lot of power in them. Some of the gaming phones, like the ROG phones or the Red Magic phones, right? 16, 18 gigs of RAM with beefed up processors and everything else in between. Those devices is on Android 11 or Android 12. So what gives in this situation? Who do we blame, right? I mean, all of them have a part of the blame, whether or not it's going to be a high-end company like Samsung or the low-end companies like Blue Mobile, right? Who's to blame? How could we hold these companies accountable? A lot of people would say, just don't buy their devices. Just don't buy their phones at all. Just don't buy the latest devices. Well, after a few years, when you don't get no support, no security patches, at this point, you are forced to buy the latest devices. You're forced at this point. So what gives? One of the reasons why a lot of people like iOS and iPhones is that they support their devices for a long period of time. Think about it. iPhone is not the best phones out there. Look, I talk and I criticize iOS about a lot of different things. You know, iPhone 14, a lot of people have been critical about them. And they talk about a lot of things about their iPhones, right? But the ecosystem, you know, and support, it can't be beat, you know? And this is why a lot of people go with Apple, even though it's not Android, even though you can't customize the device. You can't do this, you can't do this, do that, right, on iOS. But at least it gets support. Look, I think Google needs to steal Apple playbook and run a tight ship, because what they're doing right now is not working. Look, companies should be a little more transparent about device support. If you're going to sell me a phone and you only go support it for 1 year, one OS, maybe 1 year or 2 years of security patches, tell the consumer that. Tell us that when you walk across stage. Tell us that you're going to only support the device for 1 year. Tell us that you're only going to give us 1 year support for that device or 2 years of support for that device. So we as consumers can make a smart buying decisions. We know who to support and who not to support when it comes down to buying your devices. You know what? Buying devices, buying smartphones is critical. It's a personal thing because everybody uses a smartphone. Everybody uses it for making phone calls, texting, going online, emailing and stuff like that. Security patches and OS updates is very important. And we're not seeing it with only 5.2% of Android devices right now, when Android 13 has been out since 2022. And now we are a couple of months away from Android 14. I think Google needs to tighten up a little bit. But you guys let me know down in the comments below. What's your thoughts about the state of Android? Comment down below. Let's have a conversation. This is Eric. See you guys on the next video. Peace.